Hello everyone, it's Dave from Vinyl Nirvana. Today I'm going to do a comparison of features between the Thorens TD-160 and the little sister or little brother of that unit called the Thorens TD-165. I'm going to start out by showing you some of the things that are interchangeable between the two. The first is the dust cover. These dust covers both work on both of the models. Both use these hinges that are in the side of the wood. Both of them use the same mat and the same drive platter. And as you can see, both of them have identical head shells. The belt on these is also interchangeable between the two. So those are some of the things that are identical. The armrests are identical. The top caps are identical. These screw caps are identical. This front trim piece is identical. The plinth on each of these is a Euro walnut veneer, and there was a later version of the TD-165 that came out with a vinyl veneer on it. So just be aware that not all TD-165s have real wood veneer on it. So those are some of the similarities between the two. And now I'm going to focus on some of the main differences between the two turntables. The most significant one to me, having worked on these turntables for years and years, is the composition of the metal on the top plate. These tables are very similar in performance and the capability of their performance, but unfortunately almost always you're going to be able to get a cleaner example of the TD-160 rather than the TD-165 because Thorens used an inferior metal as compared to the TD-160. The metal here on the top of the 160 on the right, I'm sorry if I hadn't mentioned that before, it just tends to resist scratching better and scarring much better than this on the TD-165, which is very unforgiving and tends to show every mark that you have made by accident in contact with the front surface. So again, that's a significant difference between the two, and it's often a determiner of value in that the fronts are quite scarred on the two. Okay, let's get into some of the more nitty-gritty differences. I'm sure you can see right away that there's a difference in the makeup for the platters. Also the 45 RPM adapters. On the 165 it's plastic. On the TD-160 it's this nice machined metal. The platter itself on the 165 is also plastic, but you should note it's the same great 10 millimeter platter bearing that's on there. Very nice platter bearing for a turntable in this price range. The TD-160 is entirely machined metal, also has the 10 millimeter bearing, also sometimes has that locking catch on it, which holds the platter in place. So that's a difference between the two. You can see obviously there's a difference in the tone arm. The 165, this is known as the TP11, and on the 160 it's known as the TP16. Both arms are, to my knowledge, have the same exact bearings and capability of quality. It's just the way that the counterweight and the way that the anti-skate is set up on each. So the TD-165 has this large counterweight in the back with the fine tuning here on the front that you twist to the setting that you need. On the 160, the counterweight is this donut-shaped apparatus which goes in the back, and there's a set screw which moves it. And the fine tuning is done by this knob that's on the top, which goes from 1/2 gram up to 3 grams. So that's the fine adjustment of the weight on the TD-160. The 165 has a different anti-skate system. It's done with a stringed weight. You probably can't see this, but this is a fine nylon string with a tiny weight on it. It threads through this first post and drapes over the second post and provides anti-skating action. The anti-skating action on the TD-160 is done through this turning knob on the side that you can adjust to have an effective anti-skate also. Both arms again function at a very high level. It's just a different way of setting the weight and the anti-skate on each. I'd like to talk about the motors for a second. The motors install exactly the same. There's 3 screws here that attach the 165 motor, 3 screws here which attach the 160 motor. The 165 motor, I've noticed, is the same type that Thorens used back on the TD-150, the precursor to both of these tables. However, they've changed the pulley from metal on the 150 to a one-piece plastic here on the 165. Motor is really long-lasting. I don't see many problems with the motor. Even back on the 150s, which were made in the mid-60s, they tend to just keep going and going and going very quietly. The TD-160, they did change the motor. It's the same, again, fits in the same slots, but it's a different design. I don't notice that it's any quieter or any noisier than any other motors, but they're basically the same. The pulley system, however, is different. This is a 2-piece pulley, and it's attached with this metal piece on top that has 2 Allen screws. And the reason it's a 2-piece pulley is it has a clutch system, so that when the platter is spinning and you turn it off, it comes to a more quick stop. Whereas on the 165, you stop the platter, it'll keep going for a turn or so. Supposedly, over time, that would lead to more wear in the motor, but with decades past of both of these turntables operating, I have not seen that to really come true. They tend to just keep going and running very quietly unless there's some kind of catastrophic error that happens between the 2 of them. So that's the difference in the motors that there are. I don't think I mentioned these controls. As you can see, they used a cheaper black plastic on the controls in front of here. They used a kind of metal finish on these knobs that also have some plastic on the inside for them. And it just, there's some nice finish touches on a TD-160 that aren't there on a 165. However, I really want to make clear the performance of a TD-165 in stock form is very, very close to the performance of a TD-160 in stock form. They're both great tables. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, the main difference between the 2 is the scarring that will usually appear on a 165 as opposed to a 160. So I think I've covered the major differences between the 2. And if you've noticed that I've left something out major, please do email and I will try to correct it at some point in a later video. Thanks, and I hope this was helpful for you.